Hey everyone, I'm here to help you relax and drift off tonight. If you enjoy using these videos to fall asleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more calming content. Share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'd love to know. Now settle into a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's start unwinding together. On nights when the sky was ink black and the stars appeared as distant, trembling embers, a thick silver-gray fog would roll down from the highlands, creeping over valleys and cloaking entire hamlets in its ghostly shroud. In these moments, the world transformed. The familiar turned uncanny. Outlines of trees blurred into silhouettes, and the landscape, usually so full of life, became a realm of whispering shadows and half-remembered dreams. Legends passed down from one generation to the next spoke of a curse as old as the land itself. They said that long ago, when magic and myth still danced hand in hand, a terrible betrayal had been wrought in a secluded temple of stone. The wrong spirits of that ancient sanctuary, in their anguish, cast a malignant spell upon the region. The curse was simple yet devastating. A perpetual fog would descend, concealing from the eyes of mortals a secret so dreadful that its revelation would doom those who learned of it to sorrow and despair. Thus the fog became both protector and prison, hiding the curse in its swirling depths and ensuring that the tragedy of the past remained shrouded in mystery. Centuries before the fog became an ever-present specter over the land, the region was home to a thriving civilization known as the Arcanum. Their wisdom was as profound as their artistry, and their temples were filled with intricate carvings depicting the harmony of life and the balance of nature. But within the heart of this flourishing society, envy and betrayal festered. A power struggle among the high priests of the Temple of Ilarion led to treachery that would alter the course of history. In the temple's inner sanctum, a ritual meant to honor the gods turned into an act of unspeakable treachery. One priest, driven by ambition and blinded by jealousy, betrayed his brethren by stealing a sacred relic, the luminous heart, a crystal said to hold the very essence of life. In a final act of defiance, the wronged priest invoked the ancient god's wrath, binding the traitor and his descendants to a curse. The gods decreed that the land would be veiled in unending fog, a fog that would conceal the relic and the truth of that dark day, serving as a constant reminder that betrayal would never be forgotten. The luminous heart, once the symbol of hope and prosperity, was hidden away in the deepest vaults beneath the temple. As the curse took hold, the relic was sealed within layers of mystic wards, buried beneath soil that would one day be reclaimed by the relentless fog. Over the years, as empires fell and legends faded into myth, the truth of that ancient betrayal was lost to time. Only the fog remained, a silent, eternal testament to a grievous past. At the base of the ancient highlands lay the small town of Blackmore, a humble settlement whose people had long learned to live with the nightly descent of the enigmatic fog. Generations of Blackmore's inhabitants grew up with the mist as an ever-present companion. It was both a source of unease and a part of their identity. The townsfolk spoke of the fog in hushed voices. Some believed it was a mourning veil cast by the gods, while others whispered that it was an omen of impending doom. The narrow streets of Blackmore wound their way past centuries-old stone cottages and weathered market stalls. At its center stood the old watchtower, a relic from bygone times that offered a solitary vantage point over the shrouded valley. Here, elders would recount cautionary tales of lost wanderers and spectral apparitions, a reminder that the fog was not merely a natural phenomenon, but the keeper of an ancient, terrible secret. Among the people of Blackmore was a young scholar named Alistair Merrick, whose insatiable curiosity and scholarly bent set him apart from his peers. Unlike many who regarded the fog with quiet resignation, Alistair felt drawn to its mystery. He spent countless evenings poring over crumbling manuscripts in the town's modest library, deciphering arcane symbols and faded texts that hinted at the curse's origins. His fascination was not merely academic, it was deeply personal. Alistair's own family, it was said, bore the hidden mark of the curse, a lineage touched by misfortune, their fates seemingly intertwined with the murky secrets of the fog. Determined to uncover the truth and perhaps free his kin from an invisible burden, he resolved to journey into the heart of the mist and confront the ancient evil that lay concealed within. On a chill autumn evening, when the fog was at its thickest and the world seemed suspended between reality and nightmare, Alistair set out on his quest. He was joined by a small band of like-minded souls, Seraphine, a healer whose gentle hands and compassionate heart belied a secret strength, Calder, a rugged tracker with an uncanny sense for hidden paths, and Morella, an elder versed in the forgotten lore of the Arcanum. Together they formed a fellowship determined to pierce the veil of the fog and unearth the relic and the curse it concealed. Their preparations were meticulous. Armed with ancient maps, protective talismans, and the hope of liberation, they left Blackmoor behind and ventured toward the highlands where the fog was said to be densest. As they traversed winding trails and braved treacherous ravines, the mist clung to them like a shroud, each step forward blurring the boundaries between the living world and the realm of ancient memories. The deeper they journeyed into the fog, the more the landscape transformed. What began as familiar hills and forests gave way to a surreal, otherworldly terrain, a realm where time seemed to slow and every shadow carried echoes of forgotten sorrows. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and lost memories, and the silence was punctuated by distant, unidentifiable sounds. One night, as the fellowship camped in a clearing that the fog rendered almost invisible, they encountered strange apparitions. Flickering images of long-departed figures appeared at the edge of the firelight, faces filled with despair, eyes pleading silently for redemption. These spectral visions were the first sign that the curse was not merely an abstract legend, but a living force, reaching out from the depths of the past to ensnare the unwary. Calder's instincts warned him that they were nearing the heart of the curse. The path ahead grew treacherous, littered with the ruins of ancient altars and crumbling stone markers that bore symbols of divine wrath and sorrow. Yet driven by an unyielding determination and a desire to free their land from an age-old malediction, they pressed on into the suffocating embrace of the mist. After days of navigating the labyrinthine paths of the fog-bound highlands, the fellowship discovered the remnants of a once grand temple, half consumed by nature and obscured by layers of mist. Ivy and moss claimed the weathered stone, and broken statues of forgotten deities lay scattered among the ruins. This, they realized with both awe and trepidation, was the sacred site where the original betrayal had taken place, the birthplace of the curse. Within the temple's deepest chamber, they uncovered faded murals and inscriptions that told a story of divine retribution. The texts recounted the sacrilege of the treacherous priest, the theft of the luminous heart, and the subsequent invocation of a curse that would cast a perpetual fog over the land. It became clear that the relic, the luminous heart, had been hidden within the temple itself, its power dormant yet ever present, guarded by the very curse that shrouded the highlands. Morella, with her vast knowledge of ancient rites, deciphered the inscriptions and revealed that the curse was maintained by a ritual performed in the wake of the betrayal. The ritual, designed to punish hubris and secure divine justice, required the sealing of the relic within a magical barrier, a barrier that could only be undone by the rare convergence of celestial events and the willingness of a pure-hearted soul to risk everything for redemption. The inscriptions also hinted at a possibility of reversal. If the relic could be recovered and its power harnessed in a ritual of atonement, the curse might be lifted and the fog would recede, allowing the land to breathe free once more. The knowledge filled the fellowship with both hope and trepidation, for the ritual would demand sacrifices beyond measure, and the path to redemption was strewn with peril. With the temple's secrets as their guide, Alistair and his companions resolved to attempt the ritual. They prepared a sanctified chamber deep within the temple ruins, arranging sacred symbols and drawing upon the ancient knowledge preserved by Morella. As the night of the celestial convergence approached, the air grew thick with a sense of impending climax. The very fabric of the mist trembled with anticipation. On that fateful night, under a sky lit by a rare alignment of stars and a pale, sorrowful moon, the fellowship began the ritual of atonement. Their voices rose in a haunting chorus of incantations, reverberating against the cold stone walls. In the heart of the chamber, guarded by an altar of crumbling stone, lay the luminous heart, a crystal whose soft glow pulsed like the heartbeat of the earth, its light dimmed by centuries of sorrow. As the ritual reached its zenith, the temple trembled. The curse, long dormant and hidden within the fog, stirred to life with a malevolent force. Shadows coalesced into grotesque forms, and the very mist seemed to writhe as if animated by ancient, spiteful spirits. The spectral manifestations of the wronged souls from ages past emerged, their anguished cries echoing in the chamber, a cacophony of despair that threatened to drown the fellowship's hope. Alistair felt the weight of destiny upon his shoulders. With unwavering resolve, he stepped forward, determined to reclaim the relic, and with it, the future of his people. In a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, he reached for the luminous heart. As his fingers brushed the crystal, a surge of brilliant light exploded through the chamber, and the forces of darkness recoiled in agony. For a heartbeat, the room was filled with the combined radiance of redemption and ruin. The spectral forms shrieked, their voices dissolving into mournful echoes as the power of the relic surged forth. In that climactic instant, the ancient curse was challenged by the unyielding spirit of hope, and the fog outside began to dissipate, as though the very heavens had opened to cleanse the tainted land. The ritual exacted a heavy toll. Though the curse was broken and the relic's power restored, the energies released had not come without sacrifice. In the blinding aftermath, several of the fellowship bore physical and spiritual scars. Alistair, in particular, felt a piece of his own soul shatter as the ancient magic surged through him. Yet even as pain coursed through his veins, he understood that the sacrifice was the price of redemption, a necessary cost to restore balance to the land. The fog, once an unyielding shroud, began to lift gradually over the highlands. As dawn broke for the first time in centuries without the oppressive mist, the people of Blackmore and neighboring villages emerged from their homes, blinking in the bright, clear light of a new day. The ancient curse had been vanquished, and with it, the lingering grief of a long-forgotten betrayal. In the weeks and months that followed, Alistair and his companions worked to heal the scars left by the curse. The luminous heart was enshrined in a new temple built at the foot of the highlands, a symbol of hope, resilience, and the promise of renewal. The ancient ruins of the old temple were preserved as a somber reminder of the past, a place where future generations could learn the lessons of betrayal and forgiveness. Blackmore, once shrouded in perpetual gloom, flourished anew. The fields turned green, and streams that had long lain dormant sprang to life, echoing the liberation of the land. The story of the fog that once hid an ancient curse became a cherished legend, a cautionary tale, and a beacon of hope that would be passed down from parent to child. Years later, as the mist became nothing more than a memory, and the land healed beneath the gentle warmth of the sun, Alistair Merrick sat upon a stone bench near the new temple. He gazed upon the luminous heart, now a radiant gem of light that pulsed with the promise of life reborn. In that quiet moment, he remembered the long, arduous journey through the fog, the sacrifices made, and the ancient curse that had once threatened to plunge the world into eternal sorrow. The legacy of the curse, and its eventual undoing, had taught him that even the darkest mysteries could be unraveled by the courage of those who dared to seek the truth. The fog that had hidden the ancient curse was gone, but its memory remained, a reminder that from betrayal and despair, the seeds of redemption could blossom into a future of healing and hope. And so in the land where mist and memory once intertwined, the people celebrated every sunrise as a triumph over darkness, a living testament to the power of forgiveness, sacrifice, and the enduring light of the human spirit. In a small, mist-shrouded town known as Veridel, there lived an artist named Marcellus Dorian. Renowned for his extraordinary skill, Marcellus was as much a mystic as he was a painter. His works were rumored to possess an otherworldly quality, a vividness so intense that onlookers often swore they could hear the whispered secrets of distant lands within the strokes of his brush. Yet for all his brilliance, Marcellus was tormented by a personal grief, the untimely loss of his beloved Eleanor, whose radiance had once lit his days like a beacon. In his anguish, Marcellus embarked upon his most ambitious project, a portrait that would immortalize the beauty and spirit of Eleanor. As he labored day and night in his cluttered studio, he sought to capture not only her physical form, but the very essence of her soul. Unbeknownst to him, the incantations he murmured as he mixed his pigments, drawn from ancient tomes of forbidden lore, imbued the painting with a terrible power. When at last the portrait was finished, it was a vision of sublime beauty. Eleanor's likeness seemed to breathe on the canvas. Her eyes glowed with an inner light, and her smile hinted at secret joys and sorrows. Yet as the final brushstroke dried, Marcellus began to notice that something was amiss. The air in the studio grew heavy, and shadows stretched across the walls in patterns that defied reason. Whispers began to circulate among those who beheld the painting. It was said that if one gazed too long into Eleanor's eyes, a strange sensation of dislocation would come over them, as if a piece of their very soul were being gently, inexorably drawn away. Soon the townspeople came to fear the portrait, dubbing it the Soul Keeper, for it seemed to have the uncanny ability to trap the life force of any subject it depicted. Marcellus's love for Eleanor was as profound as it was sorrowful. In the early days after the portrait's completion, he would spend hours before it, speaking to the painted figure as if she were truly present. In those moments, he believed he could almost feel her heartbeat, her laughter suspended in the ether. But one fateful night, as a storm raged outside and lightning illuminated the somber studio, the true horror of the curse revealed itself. As Marcellus gazed upon the portrait, a sudden chill swept through the room. He felt a pull, a delicate, insidious tug at the corners of his soul. Before his eyes, the image of Eleanor flickered, and a spectral glow began to emanate from her painted form. In that moment, he realized with a mounting dread that the portrait was no mere imitation of life. It was a prison. Eleanor's essence, her very soul, had been captured and sealed within the confines of the canvas. Marcellus fell to his knees, overcome by grief and terror. He pleaded with the forces that had wrought this curse, desperate to reclaim the soul of his lost love. In his anguish, he scrawled frantic notes and incantations in the margins of his sketchbooks, determined to unravel the mystery of the portrait. Yet every attempt to break the enchantment only deepened the shadows around him. Friends and fellow artists warned him to let go of his obsession, but Marcellus could not. His heart was bound to Eleanor in life, and now it seemed in death as well. News of the cursed portrait spread far and wide. Scholars, mystics, and even charlatans flocked to Veridal, each hoping to witness the phenomenon for themselves or to claim the secret of the soul-binding magic. The once celebrated studio became a place of sorrow and dread, its walls echoing with lamentations and the murmurs of those who had lost something precious by gazing too deeply into the haunted eyes of the portrait. Among the visitors was a reclusive scholar named Isadora Blackwell, whose expertise in ancient magic and lore was unparalleled. Intrigued by the accounts of the cursed portrait, Isadora sought an audience with Marcellus. Though the artist was initially resistant, haunted by guilt and despair, he eventually recognized that he could not free Eleanor's soul without understanding the dark incantations that had been woven into the painting. Together, Marcellus and Isadora pored over ancient manuscripts, deciphering cryptic symbols and incantations. They discovered that the curse was the result of a delicate balance between creation and destruction, a ritual that had inadvertently been twisted by Marcellus's overwhelming grief. To release Eleanor's soul, they would need to reverse the ritual, a process fraught with peril, for meddling with the forces of life and death could unleash consequences beyond mortal reckoning. Driven by a desperate hope, the duo embarked on a journey that took them to the furthest reaches of forgotten lore. They consulted with hermits living in desolate mountain shrines, sought wisdom from the ancient oracles of the misty marshes, and even risked entry into the forbidden library of the arcane order. Each step of their quest was marked by cryptic warnings and dire portents. The deeper they delved into the mystery, the more it became apparent that the curse was not merely a tragic accident. It was a deliberate act of fate, a reckoning for the hubris of trying to defy the natural order of life and death. In remote monasteries, they learned of a ritual known as the reclamation of the soul, a dangerous rite that required not only the precise recitation of long-forgotten verses, but also the sacrifice of something of great personal value. Marcellus, whose heart ached with every memory of Eleanor, understood that the price might be his own soul. Yet, driven by a love that transcended fear and mortality, he resolved to undertake the ritual, no matter the cost. Under a crescent moon, on a night when the veil between the worlds of the living and the dead was at its thinnest, Marcellus and Isadora gathered the components required for the ritual. They collected sacred herbs that grew only in the hidden groves of the ancient forest, purified waters from a spring said to be blessed by celestial beings, and rare pigments imbued with the energies of the earth itself. In a sanctified chamber, surrounded by flickering candles and inscribed with protective runes, they prepared for the rite. Marcellus clutched a locket containing a faded lock of Eleanor's hair, a final remnant of her mortal touch. With trembling hands, he set the portrait upon an altar, its haunting image bathed in the otherworldly glow of the ritual's preparations. Isadora, with a solemn expression, began to recite the incantations in a language that resonated with both ancient sorrow and hope. As the ritual commenced, the chamber filled with a swirling vortex of light and shadow. The very air seemed to quiver with the weight of countless souls, and a low, mournful hum echoed from unseen depths. The incantations grew louder and more insistent, and the canvas of the portrait began to shimmer as if alive. Slowly, a spectral form emerged from within the painted image. Eleanor's soul, caught in a limbo of longing and despair. Marcellus's heart pounded as he watched the ghostly figure hover above the canvas. With tears streaming down his face, he reached out, speaking words of love and forgiveness to the spirit he had once known. At that moment, the forces of magic and emotion converged. The light of the ritual flared, and the boundaries between the mortal realm and the ethereal were torn asunder. For a long, agonizing heartbeat, time seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a sound like the shattering of glass and the sigh of 1,000 souls, the enchantment was broken. Eleanor's spirit, freed from its painted prison, ascended in a luminous cascade of light. The portrait's colors faded, and its once vibrant image dissolved into a mist of memories. In the aftermath of the ritual, silence reigned over the sanctified chamber. Marcellus sank to his knees, overwhelmed by a mixture of relief and profound sorrow. He had succeeded in releasing Eleanor's soul, yet in doing so, he felt an unbearable hollowness. A piece of him had been left behind with the cursed painting. The cost of redemption was steep indeed. Isadora, standing quietly by his side, placed a gentle hand on his shoulder and reminded him that while some sacrifices were painful, they paved the way for healing. As dawn broke over Veridal, word of the miraculous liberation spread through the town. The portrait, now a faded relic, was locked away in a secure vault, its power forever subdued. Yet the legacy of the curse and the sacrifice it demanded became a cautionary tale, recounted by elders and scholars for generations to come. Marcellus Dorian, forever changed by the events of that fateful night, retreated from the world of art and public acclaim. Consumed by grief and tempered by the bitter lessons of hubris, he dedicated the rest of his life to preserving the memory of Eleanor, not as a captive in a painted frame, but as a free spirit who continued to inspire him in every breath of wind and whisper of nature. His later works, though fewer in number, were imbued with a quiet, somber beauty, a testament to the depths of love and the price of attempting to immortalize it by unnatural means. Years turned into decades, and the tale of the portrait that trapped a soul became an enduring legend. In the quiet corners of Veridale, in the libraries filled with ancient manuscripts, and in the hushed tones of storytellers around crackling fires, the story was passed down, a reminder of the delicate interplay between art, magic, and the human spirit. Scholars debated the true nature of the curse, while poets found inspiration in the tragic romance of Marcellus and Eleanor. The tale served as a timeless lesson that some forces like love, grief, and the soul itself are too powerful to be contained by mere mortal art. And while the portrait was now little more than a faded relic in a forgotten vault, its legacy lived on in every brushstroke of sorrow and every note of melancholy in the hearts of those who dared to dream of capturing eternity. Marcellus, in his later years, was often seen walking along the riverbanks at twilight, a solitary figure whose eyes reflected both loss and the quiet hope of redemption. In his solitude, he whispered words of gratitude to the spirit of his beloved, knowing that even in tragedy, there lay the possibility of beauty and rebirth. Thus, the story of the portrait that trapped its subject's soul endures, a saga of passion and despair, of curses and the redemptive power of sacrifice, and of a love so profound that it transcended the boundaries between life and art, leaving an indelible mark on the tapestry of time. Long ago, in an age when magic and myth were as real as the whispering winds, a master artisan known as Corvian forged a lantern from fragments of a shattered star. Legends claim that this star had fallen from the heavens during a time of great turmoil, a cosmic event steeped in tragedy and loss. Corvian, driven by both despair and longing, imbued the lantern with the essence of that star, hoping to capture a glimmer of lost beauty. Yet in his grief, he also cast a curse upon his creation. The lantern would only cast light on the paths of sorrow, revealing the hidden grief of every soul it encountered. Over the centuries, the lantern passed through the hands of kings, wanderers, and mystics. Each bearer found that its light exposed the darkest corners of their hearts and memories, illuminating painful truths they had long sought to hide. The lantern earned a fearsome reputation. To follow its glow was to confront one's own sorrow in its raw, unyielding form. In villages nestled among misty hills and ancient forests, elders recounted tales of the lantern's eerie glow. Mothers warned children not to wander too close to the abandoned ruins where the lantern was said to rest, for its light could unearth grief long buried. Travelers spoke in hushed tones of forlorn figures, seen wandering the midnight roads, their eyes reflecting the lantern's melancholic gleam. Yet amid the dread, some saw a strange allure, a promise that by confronting sorrow, one might find the strength to heal. In a small hamlet on the edge of a vast, somber forest lived a young woman named Lyris. Her eyes held a quiet sadness, for she carried the weight of personal loss, a love that had been severed by fate and dreams shattered by the cruelty of time. Each night, Lyris wandered the cobblestone streets, her heart echoing with unspoken sorrow. In her solitude, she had heard whispers of the lantern that could reveal the hidden paths of sorrow, and driven by a desperate yearning to understand her pain, she set out to find it. One moonless night, when even the stars seemed reluctant to shine, Lyris ventured beyond the familiar boundaries of her village. Guided by an inexplicable pull and the murmur of ancient legends, she journeyed toward the ruins of an old chapel, rumored to be the resting place of the sorrowful lantern. The chapel lay crumbling beneath a canopy of weeping willows and ivy. Its stained glass windows were shattered, and the once proud spires bowed in silent lament. Inside, dust motes danced in the faint glow of a dying fire, and the air was heavy with memories of prayer and lament. In the heart of the nave, upon an ancient stone pedestal, rested the lantern, its surface dark and cold, yet pulsing with an otherworldly energy. With trembling hands, Lyris reached out and touched the lantern's ornate frame. In that instant, a soft, sorrowful glow emanated from its core, and the darkened chamber was filled with an ethereal light that revealed the ghosts of the past. When the lantern was lit, its beam carved a narrow path through the shadows of the chapel, stretching outward into the unknown. Compelled by a mixture of dread and hope, Lyris stepped into the light. Each step along the path revealed visions of anguish and loss, forgotten regrets, echoing laments of lives cut short, and heartbreak that had festered in silence for years. As she walked, the lantern's light illuminated scenes from her own past, a childhood filled with both laughter and lingering sorrow, a love lost to time, and moments of quiet desperation. The path was arduous and winding, often leading her to confront the memories she had tried to bury. Yet with every painful revelation, she felt an odd sense of catharsis, a gradual unburdening of her soul. Along her journey, Lyris encountered other wanderers drawn to the lantern's melancholic glow. There was Marcellus, a stooped old man whose eyes shone with the burden of unspoken regrets, and Eveline, a forlorn poet whose verses lamented the fragility of hope. Each of them, in their own way, had been searching for an answer to the perennial questions of loss and longing. United by their shared sorrow, they walked together beneath the lantern's spectral light, their conversations a quiet tapestry of memories, confessions, and dreams of what might have been. In their shared journey, they found that even the deepest sorrow could serve as a bridge between hearts, fostering a connection that transcended the pain of the past. The path lit by the lantern was not without peril. At times, the light revealed not only sorrow, but also the ghosts of those who had succumbed to despair. Figures of lost souls, shrouded in regret and anger, emerged from the darkness, their voices echoing with accusations and despair. Lyris and her companions were forced to confront these apparitions, each a manifestation of the grief that they and countless others had carried. In one harrowing encounter, Lyris found herself face to face with a spectral reflection of her former self, consumed by bitterness and self-blame. The vision spoke of all the moments she had let slip away, all the words left unsaid, and all the opportunities lost in the wake of tragedy. With trembling resolve, she reached out, not to banish the ghost, but to embrace it, a symbolic act of accepting her past and the sorrow that came with it. Through these trials, the lantern's light became more than a mere guide. It transformed into a teacher. It taught Lyris and her fellow travelers that sorrow, though painful, was an inseparable part of life. Each tear shed, each moment of regret, was a thread woven into the tapestry of their existence. They learned that to deny sorrow was to deny a fundamental truth about the human condition, that in the depths of despair lay the seeds of empathy, growth, and ultimately healing. In quiet moments by the side of a forgotten stream or beneath the ancient boughs of a mourning tree, the companions shared stories of personal grief. They spoke of lost loves, broken promises, and dreams that had crumbled like ancient ruins. And in these shared confessions, a fragile hope began to take root, a belief that by understanding their sorrow, they might learn to cherish the fleeting beauty of life. After many long, arduous nights on the sorrowful path, the lantern's glow led the travelers to a secluded glade deep within the heart of the desolate woods. Here, beneath a sky heavy with sorrowful rain and a canopy of dark, whispering pines, they found an ancient stone monument inscribed with words in a language lost to time. The monument pulsed with a soft, mournful light that seemed to harmonize with the lantern's radiance. As Lyris approached, the lantern's light intensified, revealing a final message, a prophecy that spoke of redemption through the acceptance of sorrow. The inscription urged the bearer of the lantern to recognize that the paths of grief were not dead ends, but rather roads that led to deeper self-knowledge and the possibility of renewal. In that moment, the lantern's curse revealed its true nature. By illuminating paths of sorrow, it allowed souls to confront and ultimately transform their grief into wisdom and compassion. The revelation brought forth a moment of profound decision. Lyris and her companions stood at a crossroads. They could choose to remain forever in the twilight of sorrow, haunted by the memories the lantern had revealed, or they could harness the power of that sorrow to kindle a new beginning. With tears in her eyes and a heart both heavy and hopeful, Lyris chose the latter. One by one, the travelers vowed to carry the lessons of their sorrow back into the world. They would share their stories, honor the memories of their lost loves and shattered dreams, and use their newfound understanding to help others navigate the turbulent waters of grief. The lantern, having served its purpose, slowly dimmed, its light receding like the final note of a melancholic melody. In the weeks that followed, Lyris and her companions returned to their respective lives, forever changed by their journey. The lantern, now dormant and cold, was left in the ruins of the chapel, a silent monument to the power of sorrow and the strength that comes from embracing one's own heartache. Yet its legacy endured in the hearts of those who had followed its glow. Lyris began to write her experiences in a series of poems and essays that spoke of loss and the beauty found in the honest acceptance of sorrow. Her words resonated with many, offering solace to those who had long hidden their grief behind smiles and facades of strength. In time, her writings became a source of healing for countless souls, proving that even the darkest paths can lead to profound transformation. Marcellus, Eveline, and the other wanderers each found their own ways to honor the lessons they had learned. Some became counselors and healers, dedicated to easing the burdens of others through empathy and understanding. Others dedicated their lives to art, capturing the beauty of sorrow in paintings, music, and literature that spoke to the deepest recesses of the human heart. Together they formed a small fellowship, a community bound by shared sorrow and the mutual promise to transform grief into compassion. They organized gatherings where people could share their stories of loss without fear of judgment, creating spaces where sorrow was not a sign of weakness, but a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Years later, in a quiet corner of the land, the legend of the sorrowful lantern became a cherished tale, a reminder that even in the midst of despair, there lies an opportunity for growth, empathy, and renewal. The ancient chapel and the dormant lantern stood as symbols of the endless cycle of light and shadow, sorrow and healing. Lyris, now a wise woman with eyes that reflected both pain and hope, often visited the ruins. There, amidst the crumbling stones and echoing silence, she would sit and remember the journey that had changed her life. She knew that sorrow, like the seasons, was transient, a passage that led to deeper understanding and a more compassionate existence. In the rustle of the wind and the gentle murmur of distant memories, she could still hear the soft glow of the lantern calling out to those brave enough to face their own sorrow. And so, the story of the lantern that lights only paths of sorrow endures, a testament to the truth that through the honest confrontation of grief, one can find not only solace, but also the strength to forge a new path forward. For in every tear shed and every heartache endured, there lies the seed of redemption, waiting for the moment when sorrow, finally embraced, transforms into a beacon of hope. For generations, the people of the valley had revered the river as a living chronicle of their history. Elders would gather around crackling fires to recount the story of the Dawnwater, a river born from celestial tears, gifted by a sorrowful goddess whose lament filled the heavens with rain. It was said that the river's nightly bounty sustained the land, nourishing crops and quenching the thirst of animals and people alike. But with the arrival of each dawn, the river's flow mysteriously halted, as though the night's magic was recalled to the cosmos. Local lore held that the drying of the river was no accident. It was a cosmic reminder that all things in life were ephemeral, and that beauty, like water, must sometimes recede to reveal the hidden layers of the earth. Many believed that the river's disappearance was a ritual, a natural cleansing that allowed the land to renew itself. Others whispered that the river was keeping a secret, a mystery that awaited those brave enough to follow its course beyond the daylight hours. Nestled in the valley was the quaint town of Marindel, a place where mist draped the streets at twilight in the scent of dew mingled with the aroma of freshly baked bread. Marindel's residents lived by the rhythm of the dawn water. They rose each morning to find their fields parched and their wells nearly empty, only to witness a miraculous transformation when twilight returned and the river flowed once more. In the heart of Marindel lived a young cartographer named Amon. Known for his intricate maps and a heart filled with curiosity, Amon was captivated by the river's dual nature. Every day he would venture to its banks at the edge of the town, recording the shifting landscapes and the subtle changes in the soil where water had once run. His notebooks filled with sketches of a river that defied the natural order. A river that, at dawn, surrendered its waters to the earth only to be reborn in the twilight. Amon's fascination was not shared by all. Some in Marindel saw the drying river as a curse, a sign of impending drought or the fickleness of fortune. Others believed it to be an omen, a prelude to a great change that would either lift the town to prosperity or plunge it into despair. Yet for Amon, the river was a puzzle, a challenge to be solved by those willing to look beyond the surface of everyday life. One crisp autumn evening, as the sky blushed with the colors of sunset, Amon met a mysterious wanderer by the river's edge. The stranger, clad in a cloak that shimmered like the night sky, introduced herself as Serene, a name that meant moon in a language long forgotten. With eyes as deep and enigmatic as the midnight river, Serene spoke in soft, measured tones about the river's hidden secret. Every dawn when the river runs dry, she said, it is not a sign of loss, but of transformation. The water is not vanishing. It is journeying to a place beyond our sight, where time and memory are intertwined with the essence of the world. Only by following its path can one discover the truth of our existence. Her words struck a chord deep within Amon, igniting in him a determination to uncover the mystery of the Dawnwater. Together they devised a plan to follow the river's course after it had run dry at dawn, venturing into uncharted lands where few from Marindel had ever dared to go. In the days that followed, Amon gathered maps, ancient manuscripts, and tools of navigation from the town's small library. He sought out the wisdom of the elders, who recounted tales of lost civilizations and celestial alignments that influenced the river's fate. Each story, though different in detail, painted a picture of a time when the river's secret was known, a time when people believed that the river was a portal to a forgotten era of magic and renewal. The air in Marindel was thick with anticipation and uncertainty. Farmers worried about the coming dry spells. Merchants fretted over the loss of trade, as the river once served as a route for goods. Yet amid the apprehension, a sense of wonder prevailed, an understanding that nature's enigmas were not to be feared, but embraced as the pulse of life itself. At the break of one fateful day, when the first light of dawn revealed a barren riverbed, Eamon and Selene set out on their journey. Their path led them through fields of withered wildflowers and past ancient stone ruins, half consumed by the relentless advance of time. The earth, cracked and silent, told stories of long-forgotten rains and the ceaseless march of seasons. As they walked, the companions encountered curious signs along the way. Strange glyphs etched into the rock, remnants of a language that hinted at the river's celestial origins. These markings spoke of a sacred cycle, a celestial dance that governed the interplay between water and time. Every symbol, every faded inscription urged them onward, deeper into a wilderness where the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural blurred. The journey was not without hardship. As the sun climbed higher, the heat became oppressive, and the absence of water weighed heavily on their spirits. At one point, they found themselves lost in a labyrinth of ancient canyons where the walls whispered secrets of a forgotten age. In those moments, Eamon's resolve was tested by the relentless dryness and the specter of despair that threatened to overwhelm him. Yet, in the quiet solitude of that harsh landscape, Eamon discovered an inner strength. He began to see the desert not as a barren wasteland, but as a canvas upon which the universe painted its timeless poetry. With Selene's enigmatic guidance and his own deep connection to the land, he learned to interpret the subtle shifts in the wind, the patterns of the clouds, and the silent language of the earth. Every trial, every hardship became a lesson in the art of perseverance and the beauty of transformation. One night, beneath a sky ablaze with stars and the gentle glow of a crescent moon, the duo stumbled upon a secluded temple carved into a mountainside. Within the hallowed chamber of this ancient sanctuary, they discovered murals and inscriptions that recounted the prophecy of the drying river. The texts spoke of a time when the dawn water would be called upon to relinquish its surface waters, sending them on a journey to nourish the hidden springs of creation. According to the prophecy, this phenomenon was not a harbinger of doom, but a necessary precursor to rebirth. The water gathering in secret caverns and sacred basins was destined to return to the land in a burst of life-giving energy that would restore balance and awaken dormant magic. The temple's high priestess, immortalized in faded frescoes, was depicted holding a chalice filled with shimmering water, a symbol of hope and renewal. As Eamon and Selene absorbed the temple's ancient wisdom, a sudden vision seized them. In this trance-like state, Eamon saw the river in its full splendor, not as a dry, cracked bed, but as a roaring cascade of crystal-clear water that danced over smooth stones, reflecting the brilliant hues of dawn. He saw a land reborn, a tapestry of lush forests, vibrant meadows, and sparkling lakes that emerged from the hidden reservoirs where the water had gathered. The vision was both exhilarating and bittersweet. It was a promise of what could be, a future where the cyclical magic of nature restored the vitality of the land. Yet it was also a reminder of the transient nature of beauty, that life itself was a series of endings and beginnings, each as fleeting and precious as the last. Guided by the temple's prophecy and Eamon's newfound resolve, the travelers pressed on until they reached a vast canyon where the earth opened like a wound. There, in the heart of the rocky expanse, they discovered a hidden basin, a subterranean reservoir filled with water so pure it glowed with an inner light. This was the secret destination of the Dawn Water, the place where the river's essence gathered to await its moment of return. The basin was encircled by ancient stone pillars covered in moss and lichen, each etched with symbols that resonated with the same language found in the temple. The air around the basin pulsed with a quiet energy, as though the earth itself was breathing in anticipation of a long-awaited reunion with its lifeblood. In that sacred space, Eamon and Selene encountered a solitary guardian, a wizened figure whose eyes held the sorrow and wisdom of centuries. The guardian, known only as Thalen, explained that the reservoir was the heart of the prophecy. Every time the river ran dry at dawn, its water journeyed to this hidden basin, where it would rest and rejuvenate until the celestial alignment signaled its return. Thalen spoke of a ritual, the ritual of reclamation, passed down through secret traditions. This ceremony required a pure heart, unwavering resolve, and the willingness to embrace both loss and renewal. It was a rite that allowed the water to merge once more with the surface of the earth, rekindling the life force that sustained the land. Moved by the gravity of the moment, Eamon resolved to help complete the ritual, knowing that its success would mean more than the revival of a river. It would herald a new era of hope for his people. In the days that followed, as the next cycle of dawn approached, Eamon, Selene, and Thalen prepared for the ritual of reclamation. Under a sky heralding the convergence of rare celestial bodies, a moon swollen with silver light and distant stars aligning in a cosmic dance, they gathered at the hidden basin. The air was electric with expectancy, and even the wind seemed to whisper in a harmonious anticipation. With trembling hands and resolute hearts, the trio enacted the ritual. Ancient chants filled the cavern, their cadence echoing against the stone walls. Eamon poured a vial of sacred water into the reservoir, a symbolic offering that represented the connection between the old ways and the promise of tomorrow. As the final words of the incantation faded into the night, the basin began to glow more intensely, and the water stirred as if awakening from a long slumber. In a moment that defied explanation, the hidden reservoir pulsed with a surge of energy, and the dormant channels deep within the earth trembled. A gentle rumble rose from beneath, growing into a powerful cascade. Before their astonished eyes, the water began to flow upward, snaking its way through underground passages until it burst forth onto the surface. With a sound like the jubilant laughter of 1,000 spirits, the river, the dawn water, returned in a torrent of shimmering brilliance. The once cracked riverbed transformed before their eyes. The parched earth drank deeply of the water, and in its place emerged a ribbon of liquid light that wound through the valley. The reversal was complete. What had been lost at dawn was now restored in the glow of a new day. The ritual had not only revived the river, but had also rekindled the hope that had long been dormant in the hearts of the people of Marindel. Word of the miraculous revival spread swiftly through the valley. When Eamon and Selene returned to Marindel, they were met with scenes of transformation. Fields that once lay barren now flourished with verdant crops. The town's wells brimmed with water, and the people who had once lived in a state of cautious resignation now celebrated with renewed vigor. The dawn water, with its nightly mystery and now triumphant return, had become a symbol of nature's resilience and the indomitable spirit of renewal. Festivals were held along the riverbanks, where families gathered to honor the ancient cycle of loss and rebirth. Elders recounted the legend of the river that ran dry at dawn, a tale that had once been a somber reminder of impermanence, but was now transformed into a narrative of hope, perseverance, and the promise of tomorrow. Eamon, forever changed by his journey, dedicated himself to preserving the delicate balance between nature and time. He became the town's chronicler, recording not only maps of the ever-changing landscape, but also the stories and lessons that the dawn water had taught. His writings, infused with the wisdom of the past and the promise of the future, reminded all who read them that even the most mysterious phenomena in nature served a purpose in the grand tapestry of life. Celine, too, chose to remain in the valley, her enigmatic presence a bridge between the old ways and the new era. Together with Thalen, she guided those who sought to understand the deeper rhythms of the earth, teaching the people of Marindel that every ending bore the seed of a new beginning, and that the ephemeral nature of life was to be cherished as much as the moments of triumph. Years passed, and the legend of the Dawn Water became woven into the very fabric of Marindel. The river, now revered not for its nightly disappearance, but for the wonder of its revival, flowed as a constant reminder of the natural cycle of transformation. Each dawn, when the river ran dry and then returned in the twilight, the people recalled the profound lesson that all things must ebb before they can surge anew. Amon's maps and writings became treasured relics, studied by scholars far and wide who sought to understand the interplay between nature, time, and the human spirit. The story of a river that runs dry at dawn, a story of loss, mystery, and eventual renewal, served as a beacon of hope in a world that often seemed transient and uncertain. And so, the Dawn Water continued its eternal dance, a river whose quiet disappearance at dawn was not a tragedy, but a necessary interlude in the symphony of life. In its mysterious ebb and flow, the people of Marindel found solace, wisdom, and the enduring reminder that from every ending springs the promise of a new beginning. Every sunrise in Aurelia was a rebirth, a time when the townspeople stirred from a night free of recollection. The streets, lined with cobblestones polished smooth by countless unremembered footsteps, buzzed with a serene, almost ritualistic energy. Each resident awoke as if emerging from a long sleep, unaware of the day that had just passed. They greeted each other with warm smiles and friendly nods, yet none could speak of past disagreements or lost opportunities, for the events of the previous day had vanished from their minds like mist at dawn. At the center of town stood the ancient clock tower, a weathered monument whose hands, though motionless in the eye of many, marked the relentless passage of time. The tower bore silent witness to the daily cycle of forgetting, its gears hidden deep within, operating with an inexplicable precision. No one could recall when or why the town had become ensnared by this curious enchantment, but every resident accepted it as part of the natural order of life in Aurelia. In the early hours, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through pastel clouds, the town awoke to familiar routines that were, paradoxically, always new. Shopkeepers opened their small boutiques with careful ritual. The baker kneaded dough as if for the very first time. The florist arranged her blooms in vibrant, spontaneous designs, and children set off to school with the innocent certainty that every day held fresh wonder. Among these townspeople was Corin, a quiet young man with deep, searching eyes. Though he, like all others, was bound by the curse of amnesia each morning, Corin felt a subtle dissonance within, a fleeting sense that something important lay just beyond the veil of his recollection. He had no memories of who he had been the day before, yet every new dawn filled him with both hope and a quiet yearning to piece together a life that was constantly rewritten. At midday, the town's central square became a melting pot of voices and laughter. Conversations fluttered around light topics, a compliment on the weather, an exchange about the beauty of the blooming gardens. But never did any discussion stray into the realm of the recent past. Instead, the townspeople embraced the present, leaving behind any notion of regret or loss. In Aurelia, the present was a gift, unburdened by the weight of what had come before. Yet beneath this veneer of perpetual renewal lay an undercurrent of sorrow, a deep, unspoken loss that no one could quite articulate. For all the beauty of a life unanchored by memory, there was a price to be paid. Relationships were fragile, as bonds formed in the bright light of the new day were unmoored from the continuity of shared history. Friendships and loves began afresh every morning, with no recollection of the moments that had once drawn them together. Corin, whose inner voice whispered of something lost, began to notice small inconsistencies. A faded scar on a neighbor's hand here, an inexplicable tear in a beloved painting there, clues that suggested remnants of a forgotten yesterday. Late in the afternoon, when the sun began its slow descent and shadows grew long, he felt an inexplicable pull toward the ancient clock tower. There, behind the silent facade of stone and metal, he sensed an energy, as if the tower held the key to the mystery of Aurelia's vanishing yesterdays. One evening, as twilight draped the town in soft indigo hues, Corin resolved to seek answers. He retraced his steps along winding alleys and narrow lanes, quietly questioning the elders who seemed to carry a weight that defied their morning cheer. Yet every time he asked about the events of the day before, their eyes would cloud over with confusion, and they would only offer gentle smiles and assurances that each day was a blank canvas upon which new stories were painted. Driven by an inner urgency, Corin began to document his own experiences. He kept a secret journal hidden beneath a loose floorboard in his modest home, a desperate attempt to capture fleeting moments before they slipped away. Each evening, under the dim glow of a flickering candle, he recorded details. The color of the sky, the sound of a distant bell, the laughter of a child echoing in the square. Though he knew that come morning these entries would lose their personal meaning, he clung to the hope that some pattern, some deeper truth might be discerned. As days turned into weeks, Corin's notes grew increasingly intricate. He observed that while the townspeople collectively forgot their yesterdays, the physical world of Aurelia bore silent traces of continuity. The clock tower's ancient inscriptions, the wear on the stone benches, the persistent ivy that crept along walls, these were relics of a past that refused to be entirely erased. Slowly, Corin began to piece together a theory that the town was caught in a mysterious temporal loop, a daily rebirth engineered by forces unknown. One moonlit night, unable to sleep from the restless hunger for understanding, Corin returned to the clock tower. The structure loomed against the starry sky, its silhouette both imposing and strangely comforting. As he approached, he discovered a narrow door partially concealed by creeping vines. With trembling hands, he pushed it open, revealing a hidden chamber filled with dust-laden scrolls, peculiar instruments, and a vast array of intricate gears that ticked in quiet harmony. Inside the chamber, Corin found the journal of a long-forgotten clockmaker whose careful script detailed experiments with time and memory. The journal revealed that Aurelia had once been a thriving town where memories were treasured and passed down through generations. Yet a great sorrow, a calamity that no one fully understood, had befallen the town. In a desperate bid to shield its inhabitants from the pain of loss, the clockmaker had engineered a mechanism within the clock tower to erase the memories of the previous day. His hope had been that by doing so, the town might forever live in the bliss of a perpetual present, free from the burdens of regret and grief. However, as Corin read on, he discovered the unintended consequences of this grand design. The erasure of memory, while easing the pain of yesterday, also severed the continuity of life, leaving its people in a state of unending reinvention. Every morning, the residents of Aurelia woke as strangers to themselves, doomed to rebuild relationships and relearn the contours of their own souls each day. The clockmaker's intention to heal had instead trapped the town in a cycle of loss, a bittersweet existence where each dawn was a rebirth and each dusk a reminder of all that was forgotten. Armed with this revelation, Corin faced an agonizing choice. He could expose the truth of Aurelia's secret and risk shattering the delicate balance that had come to define the town, or he could continue to live within the comfortable haze of forgetting. The decision tormented him, for he had come to cherish both the mystery and the fleeting beauty of each unremembered day. Yet he also longed for the continuity of self, a coherent narrative that connected past, present, and future. Gathering his courage, Corin organized a clandestine meeting with a few kindred spirits who, like him, had felt the faint pulse of something deeper beneath the town's daily amnesia. In hushed voices and hidden corners, they shared their own fragments of recollection, a whispered melody from a lover's farewell, a half-remembered promise made under the stars, a lingering warmth that defied the chill of oblivion. Together they vowed to break the cycle, to restore the tapestry of memory that had once bound them as a community. Their plan was as audacious as it was dangerous, to recalibrate the mechanism within the clock tower so that it would no longer erase the events of the past day. The ritual required not only technical mastery gleaned from the clockmaker's journal, but also a profound act of collective will, a unison of hearts willing to bear the pain of remembrance in exchange for the possibility of growth. On a night when the moon hung full and heavy in the sky, the small band gathered at the hidden chamber. With trembling hands and resolute eyes, they adjusted the intricate gears and inscribed ancient symbols upon the walls. As the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place, a soft, resonant chime echoed through the chamber, a sound that seemed to vibrate in the very marrow of their bones. In that moment, the magic that had long governed Aurelia wavered, and for a single heartbeat, time held its breath. As dawn broke over Aurelia, the townspeople awoke to a profound and bewildering shift. For the first time in as long as anyone could recall, fragments of yesterday lingered in their minds. At first, there was confusion, a hesitation as familiar faces and places seemed touched by the shadow of past events. A baker paused before kneading his dough, sensing a poignant memory of a day filled with shared laughter that now surfaced like an echo from a dream. Neighbors greeted one another with tentative glances, as if unsure whether the bonds of friendship could now endure beyond a single day. Corin walked the streets with a bitter-sweet smile, the weight of remembrance both a comfort and a burden. He witnessed tears as families reunited with long-forgotten affections and quiet introspection, as individuals grappled with regrets that had been buried beneath the relentless amnesia. The town of Aurelia was awakening not only to a new day, but to a new reality, one where the continuity of memory offered the promise of growth, reconciliation, and even redemption. Yet the change was not without its challenges. The re-emergence of memory brought with it the full spectrum of human emotion, pain, sorrow, and loss, once washed away by the gentle tide of forgetfulness, now returned in vivid color. Old wounds were reopened, and the collective heart of the town ached with the burden of remembered grief. But amid the tears, there was also joy, the rekindling of relationships once thought ephemeral, the reclaiming of personal histories, and the newfound resolve to build a future that honored both the beauty and the sorrow of life. In the days that followed, Aurelia underwent a transformation. The clock tower, once a silent arbiter of oblivion, now stood as a monument to the town's reclaiming of its identity. Its chime, no longer a harbinger of erasure, resonated through the streets as a reminder that every moment, both the joyous and the painful, was an integral part of the human journey. Years later, the story of Aurelia became a legend in its own right, a testament to the resilience of memory and the indomitable spirit of a community that refused to let go of its past. Children grew up hearing tales of the old days, not as stories of sorrow, but as lessons in the beauty of remembrance and the strength found in shared history. Families gathered around hearths to recount the chronicles of their ancestors, and the town's archivist, inspired by Corin's secret journal, compiled a great compendium of memories that spanned generations. Corin, now an elder with kind, reflective eyes, would often sit by the base of the clock tower, watching the interplay of light and shadow as the day unfolded. He remembered the nights of clandestine gathering, the trembling hope of a single chime, and the courageous decision to embrace the full spectrum of life. In his heart, he knew that while memory could be a source of pain, it was also the wellspring of wisdom, empathy, and connection. Aurelia had become a living tapestry, a town where every remembered moment, every joy and every sorrow was woven together to form a narrative of enduring hope. In the quiet corners of the town, in the whispered greetings of neighbors, and in the steady chime of the clock tower, the legacy of yesterday lived on, guiding the people of Aurelia toward a future rich with meaning, forged by the power of memory and the courage to face life as it truly was. And so, in this town where no one once remembered yesterday, the people learned that the act of remembrance was not a curse, but a gift, a key to understanding who they were, and a beacon to light the path toward tomorrow.